Today, we're going to be talking about Handshake. If you're here, you probably have some familiarity with it, which is good. But I'm going to walk you through how to get started with Handshake, how to set up a profile, how to use some of the things that we've set up as far as collections, how to search for jobs, how to upload your resume. Basically, it's going to be a comprehensive overview of how to use the platform, how you can make the most out of it. My name is Seth Newsom. I'm the Employee Relations Coordinator. I'm also the campus expert, so to speak, on Handshake, which is why I'm the one doing this presentation. But I also work as the internship coordinator. I keep tabs on all the internships, all the opportunities that are coming through our office. I try to get those out to the students. I try to send out regular emails. In fact, one just went out a minute ago about a couple of internship opportunities that are expiring at the end of this week for applications. I'm also the job location and development coordinator. So I work with local businesses within the region to try to identify other part-time, full-time positions for students. That is a program that works through the financial aid office through federal work study. Quick overview about what Career Services does. We do one-on-one career coaching, we do job search, resume assistance, interview preparation, career exploration, and job fairs. All those things are lined out on the little card that you probably have in front of you there. We are full service, so we do everything for our students from just figuring out what major, what career they want, all the way to actually helping them prepare for the interview, the first interview out of college. So a few resources that we have today, we're talking about Handshake, obviously, which is the first one here. We also have Focus to Career, which is our career search and or placement sort of app. So it's one of those things where you can sit on your couch while you're watching Netflix or eating pizza or whatever and fill out some real basic surveys, and it'll give you some insight as far as the inputs that you give it, some career ideas, career guidance, as well as I think it has a little bit of major exploration in there. So if you're confused about what major you want, or maybe you're still trying to figure that out, Quincia is it's an AI-powered ATS tool. So ATS is an applicant tracking system. So when you are applying for jobs, ATS systems will take your resume and they will scan it from left to top to bottom. And as long as your formatting is okay, it's going to basically pull in all your information. A lot of big companies that get a lot of applications for positions use ATS to basically pick apart and put resumes into separate piles, so to speak. So if you don't have the either work experience or the skill set, it can filter out applicants that way. All of these are free. All these are tools that you have available to you as a student. And then finally, EAB. You're probably familiar with EAB, but EAB is how you book appointments with Summer or myself or anyone that's in our departments. If you need one-on-one career guidance, if you need to work on your resume, you're going to do all that through EAB. Okay, and then the card that I passed out that's in front of you is it's our 1, 2, 3 guide to career readiness. So depending on where you're at in your studies, depending on what classification you are, I always recommend that you go from top to bottom, 1 to 3, as far as getting your career ready. So if you're just getting started, you don't have a resume, you don't know where to start with one of our peer career coaches. We've got 5 career coaches. They are in the Writing Center, and they are trained on everything from cover letter writing to resume assistance. They can also help you navigate Focus to Career, Quincia, all that kind of stuff. Once you get that initial resume and you start looking for jobs, then get in touch with Summer, who's over in the College of Business, or Madison, who handles our Fort Worth campus and distance learners. Summer is in office 103 in the College of Business. If you search through EAB, it's BUSI 103. And you can set up an appointment with her. So she will take what you already have as far as your resume and help you find jobs through either external, if we have knowledge of jobs that are external from Handshake, help you look through Handshake, do all the career readiness type stuff one-on-one. And then finally, once you get through that, come to job fairs, work on your interview skills, and connect with employers. And this is really the part where we get heavily involved with our students as far as getting them connected with employers, getting them in front of positions and opportunities that work best for them. And a lot of that is through job fairs. And then the backside of that card is where all of those 1, 2, 3 spots are located. Number one, obviously, is in the Writing Center. That's where we want everyone to start. Number two, in the College of Business, where Summer's office is. And then number three is the Admin Annex North, which is actually right behind the College of Education building and to the right, if you're looking from the center of campus, from the math building. We also have a career coordinator who's Madison. She's up in the Fort Worth campus. Okay, so today this is a workshop on Handshake, how to get started with the platform, starting with how to log in, all the way to how to apply for a job and what to do with it, why all of this matters. So we're going to go through what is Handshake, how to get started, how to get your profile built out, and then we're going to get into some more advanced tips on how to make Handshake really work for you and why doing all of this is important and tying it all together. What is Handshake? It basically is a nationwide platform with about 750,000 employers on it, millions of students, thousands of universities use it. We say, especially when I'm talking to an employer, is that we are a Handshake school. There are other platforms that are competitors with Handshake. We are a Handshake school. Handshake is our way of connecting students with employers and vice versa. It is how students will register for our workshops, which is probably how you found this. It's also how our students can register for job fairs, and the same thing with our employers. All of our employer interactions run through Handshake. It really is a one-stop shop. It is the only official university job board. We no longer have the old school university job board that was thrown up on a section of the website. That doesn't exist anymore. All of that goes through Handshake. And our staff has gone through and really tried to make it as easy as possible for students to look at what's available for them that's relevant to Tarleton students specifically, not just the broader nationwide opportunities. So it's where you can find research jobs and careers. And as I already said, register for job fairs, events. In some cases, there may be appointments available through there, although most of that runs through EAB, but mostly registering for job fairs and events, finding jobs, and applying. Okay, so getting started with Handshake, every Tarleton student has a Handshake account waiting for them to claim. So you're going to use your first name dot last name at go.tarleton.edu, not your student ID at tarleton.edu. Those, while they're connected on the university side, they are not connected through Handshake. So it's really important. A lot of students run into the issue they can't log in, but they're using their student ID. The first thing you're going to do is check your email, verify that the email is in fact yours once you first claim that account, and then you're going to go into the profile build. So setting up the profile, and this is what I tell students is probably the most important part of setting up your profile. When you first log into Handshake for the very first time, it's going to walk you through the entire profile setup piece. Everything that you're seeing in this video here is actually going to be a step-by-step as you go in. It's going to ask you what kind of job types are you looking for, part-time, full-time, internships. I think there's a couple other categories, but those are the main ones. Locations, which is extremely important, which is where do you want to work? So if you're a student and you're still on campus and maybe you're looking for part-time work or local work, it's okay to put Stephenville, obviously, because there are a lot of opportunities within about a 20-mile radius of Stephenville. But when it comes to full-time work, put in the locations where you want to work, because if you want to work in Austin or Houston or San Antonio or wherever you're from, it's going to be really important that you put that in there. And then finally, job roles. So job types and job roles are confusing, but job roles are what type of job do you want? And generally speaking, they're overarching categories. So if you want to work in marketing, for example, then it will actually give you several different options for marketing positions under one kind of job profile or job role. So input all that information. The important thing to remember is that students who have these three fields filled out are more likely to see relevant job opportunities, because the first time you log in, it's just going to be jobs from all over and none of it's going to make any sense to you. So you're more likely to see relevant job opportunities, and you're about 80% more likely to get messaged by recruiters. And I will tell you that recruiters, because I work with them, they are on Handshake all the time looking for potential talent. Having all of this updated, which we'll get to at the end, but having all of this updated is going to be really helpful. Once you've got those three pieces set up, the rest of the profile completion, I say completion in quotes, process is inputting work experience or volunteer experience. If you have work experience, definitely put that in there. But if you're involved in student organizations, or maybe you volunteer at a not-for-profit, you're going to want to put that in there. Student organizations and extracurricular activities. I said student organizations at the top piece, they're separate, but student organizations and extracurriculars, or anything you're involved in outside of your classwork, put that in there, and then highlight your skills. And I'll say, be honest with the skills that you have, and understand that you can always update and add skills later as you develop work experience, or maybe through classwork and things like that. And then finally, coursework, it's optional, but I tell students that if you are taking very specific classes that are relevant to the jobs that you want, include that information on there, especially as you gear up towards internships, because it's going to help employers see, oh, okay, this student is this far along on their studies, so we have a baseline of what knowledge they have coming into our position. Along with the three things that we saw on the last screen, with work experience, student organizations, and skills, that's what we call a completed profile. That's what Handshake considers a completed profile. And a completed profile is more likely to be seen by employers. And the more information, I always say this, the more information you give Handshake, the better. So the more information that you can curate towards it, the more relevant the jobs are going to be, and the more relevant employers are going to reach out to you. Moving on to the settings piece. And again, this is going to be something that you're going to walk through this the first time you log in. But if you follow the video here, if you need to edit this later, then this is how you're going to do it. But basically, either from the setup or from once you're inside Handshake, if you just click your profile on the top right, go to settings and go to privacy, you will have the opportunity to dictate your profile privacy. And that's important because, and I'm going to go ahead and move past this, but make sure you save at the bottom. Otherwise, it's not going to remember anything. But what's important about this from this privacy window here is by default, your privacy is going to be set up to community, and that's fine. Community only means that employers can see your profile as well as your peers. So if you have friends, if you have, and again, this is a nationwide platform. So if there are students at other institutions, they'll also be able to see your profile. It's just a way to get connected, but it's strictly up to you whether you want that sort of interactivity. I do recommend that at the very least you use the employer's profile setting. That way employers at the very least can see you. Again, Handshake is a vetted and safe software system, so it's not like employers can necessarily access your data, but they can see your profile information. And I think that's very important because, like I said, employers are using Handshake regularly. As far as uploading a resume, I always recommend uploading a resume. So upload your most recent resume, and if you have old resumes in there, I would delete them. You can upload multiple resumes, but make sure you keep the most updated version on your profile. That way you don't get confused, and that way if an employer stumbles across your profile, they're not looking at two different versions of what otherwise is maybe the same resume. Make sure that it's public, and as you can see from the video here, as you upload, there is a box to make it public. That is an option. I recommend making it public, again, so that employers, if they're looking through and finding students who might meet their needs as far as talent, they can look at resumes. And as I've already said, make sure you only upload your most recent updated resume. And I would also probably recommend that you go through every 6 to 12 months as you update your resume. Just go ahead and upload your most recent one. That's really the basic Handshake setup. profiles set up. So now that we've got our profiles theoretically set up, what do we do with it now, and why does any of this matter? Now we're going to move on to how to make Handshake work for you. And this is just our advanced tips on really how to leverage the platform and making sure that it's doing everything that it's capable of and you are getting the most out of it. A few things that I really want to highlight that are important to know is using curated collections. So our staff has gone through and we have made collections for Tarleton students. And collections are basically, as you might suspect, they are collections of either jobs or employers or a combination of the two. And they are, generally speaking, they are employers or jobs that we have direct connections with. These are the jobs from either our employer partners, folks that come to our job fairs, whatever the case may be. We've got, I would say, 4 or 5 that are really our go-tos right now. That's really where to start any job search, is what I recommend. Additionally, you can register for events. So if you come to a job fair or workshops, all of those registrations are going to be here in Handshake. And then finally, checking your messages, especially when you're searching for jobs, because unless you have a public resume with your phone number and email on there, a employer has no other way of getting into contact with you. If they pull your resume, they find your phone number. That's one thing to be aware of when you are putting a public resume out there, is that folks can contact you. But if you're seriously on the job hunt, that's probably a good thing. Keep in mind that if you don't have a resume uploaded, you're going to have to check your messages, because that's the only other way that an employer can get in contact with you, unless you apply for a job externally, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. There are a few different ways you can use collections within Handshake. You can directly access collections, and that's that first piece of the video there. So when you are on your profile, if you scroll down all the way to the bottom, you'll see collections. You can hit more or show more, I think it is, and that will show you all of the collections that we've created. And from there, you can browse either the list of employers and or the list of jobs that are within those collections. The other way that you can access collections, and the way that Summer uses it pretty often, the way that I use it when I'm talking to students, is to actually go to that job tab on the left. And then using the Tarleton Collections tab, you can pick which collections you want to search within. So you can search, like in this example, I use human resources. It's only going to pull jobs that are hitting those keywords, so human resources, from the collections that we've built. So those are, again, great places to start looking for jobs. And I will say that probably the collections that you'll want to leverage the most are Tarleton Career Services, because that is all of our employers that come on campus for job fairs. I think I looked yesterday and it was about 150 or 200 employers and about 1,000 jobs in there. Now, not all of the jobs are in Texas. They are nationwide jobs because they're nationwide companies. But it's a great place to get started. The other one is one that I created, and it just to keep myself straight, but it's the Tarleton Employer Relations. So that is where, if I'm having conversations with employers and I'm trying to work to get them on campus, I can put those employers in that collection. That's another good place to look for opportunities. I will admit that I can stretch far and wide to talk to different employers. So those are going to be those opportunities that may require a little bit of travel, but at the same time, there's still good opportunities. We also create collections for every job fair. Now, when you go into the job fair, you'll be able to see the employers, and then you can click on the individual employers, see what they have posted. But we've also created collections for each job fair. If you're going to be attending the College Business Job Fair in March, for example, then you can go to that job fair collection and look at all the jobs that are available. And those update dynamically. All of these update dynamically based on the inputs that we give it. So as jobs are filled, taken down, put up, they're going to auto-populate those collections. So you're never going to see anything in there that's stale. Registering for events. As I've already said, job fairs are obviously the big one. Workshops, you probably hear because you got an email or got a notification for the workshop that we're hosting today. The other one, though, that I failed to mention earlier is employer events. So in fact, tomorrow and Friday, we have an employer coming on campus who's recruiting for a summer camp. What I like to do is I like to get them set up through Handshake so students get to see that information. They also know where to find the student, or sorry, where to find the employer if they're at the student center or if they're at a academic building or something like that. But you're going to do all of that through Handshake. You can do that through the events tab. You can also look at events that are just from career services, and that's career center events. There's a tab on there for that. Again, walking through the video here, you can register for a job fair, you can favorite a job fair, all that good stuff. Really simple to use in that regard. And as we already mentioned, check your messages because Handshake works with universities. They understand privacy laws and all that kind of stuff. So the only way that an employer can contact you is through messages unless you somehow provide them that information. I always recommend that if you're actively searching for jobs or internships to check your messages weekly. It's probably not as big of a deal when you're not actively searching for a job, but when you start putting in applications, check weekly just to make sure that there's not an employer that's trying to get a hold of you, try to set up an interview, something like that. I would say that if you do respond to those messages, be professional, treat it like any other employer communication. I will say that we can't control every message that comes through. There are employers that pay for certain access through Handshake that can message to broader student population. So if it's something that you don't feel comfortable with or that you feel maybe is not a legitimate employer, again, Handshake vets a lot of that stuff. Things do fall through the cracks. Just make sure that the messages are from legitimate recruiters. Do some research. And if you don't feel comfortable with something, let our office know and we can investigate. If we need to, we can block an employer from accessing our students. Moving on to how we tie all this together and why it's important to get your profile and everything set up. Because I see the employer side, I can communicate what an employer sees versus the inputs that you give Handshake and how all that stuff correlates. I've harped on it several times, but recruiters are actively spending time on Handshake. And it's not the only platform, but it is the only university approved platform for employers to post jobs. It is the only one that career services leverages to get jobs posted from employers. And every employer that I speak to, I am encouraging them to post the jobs on Handshake. Now, they can link externally to apply for jobs, but the portal is still through Handshake. So it's going to be your main connecting piece. And as I've said, it's designed to connect you with the information that you give it to relevant jobs. I went on a deep dive myself the other day to look at what some things look like from the employer end. When an employer posts a job, they can put in any number of qualifications. They can put in that we're looking for master's students or seniors or juniors. We're looking for students that have X, Y, and Z major groups. We're looking for students with these skills, and all of that culminates into what an employer sees as qualifications. So this is why it's really important that you fill out all that information about your major, if that's not already pre-populated. Some of that information gets pushed in from university sources, so it may be pre-populated, but all your skills, your work experience, what your classification is, all that stuff, make sure that it's up to date. Because employers are going to look at, like in this example here on the screen, they're going to look at all of their applicants and they're going to see who qualifies most closely, who matches most closely with the position that they posted. They're going to see this matching score. Whoever this student here that applied for this job, they hit 4 of 4 qualifications. These two here hit 3 of 4, 1 of 4, and 0 of 4. Employers are going to look at that at its 30,000 foot level and say, okay, maybe we want to talk to the 4 of 4s and the 3 of 4s. And the rest of the candidates are probably going to get dispositioned. But what's important is that not only can you see, so when you look at as a student, when you look at a job description, there's going to be a section in there that shows what employers are looking for. And additionally, employers can target all students who match the qualifications that they put in there. So again, the more updated you are with this information, the more important that it's going to be and the more relevant positions you're going to get. And I think in one of these videos, I actually have a piece where it shows you, yeah, so what they're looking for, what that looks like when you're looking at a position within Handshake. Moving into the job search piece. When you're searching for jobs in Handshake, you're going to use the jobs tab on the left-hand side. Now, again, you can access positions different ways through collections, but the jobs tab is going to be the best way to look for positions. So you can use the collections there. You can also sort by location if you want on-site, remote, full-time, part-time, whatever you are looking for, you can put that in as a filter. You can save positions, you can bookmark them. So if you're just browsing positions, you're looking for an internship and you bookmark 15 or 20 or 25 internships, you can go back to that save tab at the top and kind of review those things, make sure you hit the qualifications, all that kind of stuff. And again, I would say if you're actively looking for jobs, make sure you look at that what they're looking for piece. The other thing is that you can apply, some companies have you apply directly through Handshake, and some will have you apply externally. And it'll tell you, I think, right under the job description, apply through Handshake or apply externally. Either way, it's going to populate your basic information from your profiles, your first name, last name, whatever information is in there, it's going to populate that as part of the application process. And then it'll give you the opportunity to upload a resume. If you already have your resume uploaded, like we talked about earlier, then it's just a matter of clicking upload a resume. Not all employers, depending on the job, not all employers require a resume. So that may or may not be an option when you apply for some of the jobs. But if the applications are all through Handshake, it's super simple because it's just basically, are you authorized to work in the US, and upload a resume and then you applied. Yeah, so Handshake has a dedicated trust and security team.
Right.
So every employer that runs through Handshake, they actually verify that they are the company that they say they are, and that the people who are applying to get on Handshake are who they say they are. So they verify identity as well as EIN numbers. Okay. Moving on to the application piece. When you're applying for jobs, obviously, we've already walked through and shown that your info is auto-populated. I kind of already skipped through this, but because all of your information is auto-populated, I say all of your information, a lot of your information is auto-populated. It's just important to stay on top of your profile and make sure everything's updated. I recommend too, if you're a full-time student and you're coming back year after year, maybe at the beginning, so if you work in the summer, for example, maybe at the beginning of the fall semester, go through and update your profile, add your work experience, update a fresh resume. Don't really recommend putting cover letters just because cover letters are so dependent on the position and the employer that you're applying for.